going? Welcome to my Star Trek Picard Season 1 Episode 4 Absolute Candor review. So this episode begins on the Romulan relocation hub of Vashti, and it's currently under construction. So apparently this planet is run by a cult of female ninjas who are called the Coat Malat, or something like that. So they're looking after some young Romulan boy who Picard dropped off there because he couldn't find anywhere else for him to go. Sure, we'll believe that. I mean, surely they could find somewhere else for him to go. So Picard's got this ridiculous looking Great White Hope outfit. Like he looks like some sort of albino Indiana Jones. And he gives this kid a copy of The Three Musketeers by Alexander Dumas. And this scene's really weird because now apparently Picard likes kids. I thought he always just didn't like kids at all and just saw them as an annoyance. And it seems like Picard was on this Vashti planet when the robots attacked Mars. And he seems like he's been there for a while, which is odd considering that he's trying to organize a relocation of 900 million Romulans. So then we go back to the present day and we're on the ship, the La Serena, I think it's called. And Dr. Girardi is bored. Sigh. And she makes some comment about how space is so empty and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, but there's over 3 billion stars. So, like, it's not that empty. And I'm like, 3 billion? Like, the Milky Way galaxy has an estimated 100 to 400 billion stars. But I guess 100 to 400 is more than 3. So Raffi's really annoyed because she thought she was going to go to Free Cloud and get herself some snake leaf because she wants to smoke weed every day. And this ship appears to be equipped with a hollow suite, and Picard has turned it into a recreation of his office at the Chateau Picard. It's totally not that they just wanted to use the same set over again. And this entertainment hologram that's running it for him says that it's like recreated down to the finest detail, and I'm like, you sure you wouldn't want to change something? Like maybe push out a wall or raise the ceiling or something, or maybe have enough room for 2 desks? I don't know. And I find it a bit rude that there's like people who are bored on this ship and Picard's hogging this holodeck for himself. Like, can't you just save the program in memory and then say to other people like, all right, I'm not using it anymore. Like, you can go in there and play Sherlock Home Adventures or something. And in this scene, he manages to say, come. That's my Picard voice. So this episode also shows that there's a 3rd or 4th hologram called the Emergency Hospitality Hologram. So how many of these things are there? And the way they talk in this scene, it's a bit like a soap opera. Like they're using really casual speech patterns and like current day sayings. It doesn't really ring true to the Star Trek ethos. And in this scene, Picard accuses Raffi of not being straight with him. Like, he says that would be a refreshing change if she was straight with him. I haven't seen her not be straight with him yet in this series. So is that something from the comics that we haven't seen? And apparently, some warlord is ruling this sector of the galaxy because there's a power vacuum. And he allegedly has an old Romulan bird of prey. But it's okay because we'll never hear from this guy ever again. Mark my word. So this band of space ninjas that are on this planet are apparently called the Coat Malat. And it's said that they're the most fearsome enemies of the Tal Shiar. But what about the Zhat Vash? So this little kid's grown up and his name is Alnor, which makes me think of Elrond from The Lord of the Rings, but then that also makes me think of L. Ron Hubbard of Scientology fame. I'm sure it's all just a coincidence. So these space ninjas have this thing called the Way of Absolute Candor, which is basically you have to say what you're really thinking. So Girardi's in the ship and she thinks that the Way of the Absolute Candor seems a little bit annoying, and I'm like, that's a bit rich coming from the most annoying character on this show. And there's a lot of competition for that title. So Soji's on the Borg cube and she's watching back some video of Rhonda the Reclaimed Romulan, and It's like an interview style show, and she just gets more information about her. And this scene is completely pointless. So this Vashti planet has a shield, which has some weird way of getting through it. To be allowed to the planet, you have to like wait for a timer to count down, and then you've got like 1 minute or something to get through it. That makes no sense. And if you try to get through it, you're met with immediate kill fire, which I find is the best kind of fire. So the residents of the planet are refusing to allow Picard through, but he goes anyway. I don't know how that works, don't ask me. I just work here. So some of the citizens of Vashti are like wearing these armbands that has some weird symbol on them, and I'm kind of wondering if it's like a Nazi armband or the yellow star that the Jews were made to wear. Like, are they wearing it to identify themselves to others, or are they wearing it so that others can identify them? They never mention it. They focus on it, but they never mention it. So Picard walks past the bar, and some dude like hits his communicator thing on his chest and like, so it looks like he's been dobbed into someone. And then in this Space Monk's temple, someone is cooking the world's largest Dorito. It looked delicious. So back on the Romulan cube, and Soji's trying to find out what happened to Rhonda, the reclaimed Romulan, and her ship, the Candor. And Narek is being a bit evasive, so yeah. So then the best scene in the entire episode, Narek takes Soji on a whimsical slide down a ventilation chute. They like take their shoes off and slide down this corridor in their socks, and it's like they're ice skating or something, and there's this music playing, and it's just pointless. It's just so out of place. It's ridiculous. I almost laughed. And then they kiss, and while they're kissing, he accuses her of being a phony, and she's like, well, screw you then. And he says, well, what about all the info on this Borg cube? You need that info. So someone's posted Picard's face to Instagram, and there's an alert out for him. And then Captain Beardy Man works out that there's a ship approaching, and it's that Romulan bird of prey. Exciting stuff. I guess the cloaking must be busted on it then. So it turns out that these space ninjas will help you out if they deem your quest to be worthy. It's like something from a bad Dungeons & Dragons campaign. So then Elnor offers Picard some food, and Picard's like, no thanks, and he like throws it down and goes off and sulks. And it turns out that he can't be Coat Mulat because he's the wrong gender. How rude. So it turns out that this Elnor guy is a Aussie space elf. And I keep calling him Alron. I can't help it. So he's talking to Picard, and there's these ridiculous artificial dust motes catching the light as they drift across the screen, like this. They're just like, oh. And I'm like, that's all I can concentrate on. I don't even know what they say in this scene because I'm too distracted by these bloody CGI dust motes floating around. Ridiculous. So Elnor says that he won't help Picard because Picard only came back because he needed help with something, not because he wanted to visit him. And that seems like a running theme with this series of Picard because Raffi also said the same thing about Picard earlier. So because of this timed shield, which is very convenient because it allows some tension because they can't beam him off the planet straight away, so they have to wait 7 minutes for him to be able to be beamed off. So instead of just like hiding behind a tree or staying with the space ninjas, he goes to a local bar and starts some trouble. Why not? He grabs the No Romulan sign and throws it to the ground, and then he goes over and sits down, and everyone's like, who's this jerk? And he's like, what are you going to do about it? So some of the locals recognize him, and they go over to him and basically start roughing him up a bit and telling him that he betrayed them. And one of them challenges Picard to a sword fight. Luckily, he'd been practicing swordsmanship earlier in the episode. So they have this duel, and straight away Picard basically throws his weapon down, and he's like, I'm not going to fight. But it's too bad because this guy's going to fight him anyway. But luckily, Aileron's there to save the day, and he does a massive ninja spin and cuts the guy's head off, ninja scroll style, where just a trickle of blood appears around his neck, and then his head falls off. But we do get to see some of this green Romulan blood we've heard so much about. And there's some pretty crappy dialogue in this scene, because when Alnor's trying to stop the fight, he says, you should choose to live. And then, Kia! He cuts his head off, and he's like, I regret your choice. Terrible. Horrible. I cringed. So then Picard gives some speech about how the Federation let these people down, and one of them basically says, well, a sword's impressive, but it can't do better than a blaster. So then Picard and Alnor get beamed up right at the last second, and then Picard's all like, oh, you shouldn't have killed that guy. He didn't deserve to die. And Alnor's like, he made his choice. And then it's revealed that the space ninjas will only bind themselves to a lost cause. So that's good to know. Really gives me hope for the remainder of the season. And then on the Borg cube, Rizzo's back. Yeah, boy! And she's getting erotic with her brother. Now, I'm starting to wonder if they're actually brother and sister, or if this is some sort of like blood oath that makes them in some sort of a brotherhood, and that's why she calls him brother. Because otherwise, someone who's writing these scripts has got some sort of a weird kink going on. So she basically gives Narek a week to sort Soji out. And he's like, I'll try. And then Picard's ship gets attacked by this bird of prey that we've heard so much about. And the pilot's like worrying about flying too close to this defensive grid around the planet, but he just keeps getting closer and closer to it instead of flying away from it. Idiot. Luckily, he has a sweet weapons expert hologram to help him out. And this weapons expert hologram speaks Spanish. Well, at least I think it's Spanish. So do all of these holograms need to be of different nationalities? I'm just mentioning it because reading subtitles during an action scene is kind of distracting. And you miss out on what's happening. So then this third super mystery ship arrives and starts shooting this Romulan bird of prey. And Raffi's all like, oh, that's good timing. And I'm like, yeah, it is for the plot. So this space battle has zero tension because all of the major characters in the entire episode are in this one ship. So there's no way it's going to blow up. What they should have done is had them try to retrieve or save something else. Then that thing could be blown up, and then there'd be a little bit of tension because there'd be a chance that that could get blown up. And then they go through some sort of weird back and forth where the other ship is getting blown up and they're like, open the channel, put him on. Oh, he needs to beam over. Oh, he this. Oh, he that. I'm like, you have no evidence that it's a man. Why are you all saying he? So anyway, this little ship crashes into the defense grid and blows up, and they beam him across just in time. Him. More like her, because it's 7 of 9. Oh my god. And then Picard's like, 7 of 9? And she's like, Picard, you owe me a ship. And faints. And I found this interesting because I thought maybe she would have recognized him as Locutus of Borg, seeing as they're both like still affected by their nano implants. So this is a pretty bad episode. Like, there's a lot of scenes that just go nowhere. And a lot of people do things for unknown reasons, or they do things that aren't in their character. And I really found that I just cannot care for any of these characters. There's absolutely zero tension in any of the battles because it doesn't matter if they die to me. And this is just a personal thing, but I find that Alnor's Aussie accent is very distracting. I'm not sure if he's meant to be like stoic or something, or if he's just boring, or if it's just bad acting. But I'm like, who is this guy? Can we move on, please? And that sock skating scene was probably the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in a Star Trek episode. And I've seen some ridiculous things. Like, not every episode is exciting all the way through. There's some that have lulls in them, and there are some that are just duds. But this season of Picard, I just haven't found an episode that I've actually enjoyed yet. Don't get me wrong, the effects are great. The CG is fantastic, with the exception of all the lens flare and the CG dust motes. So I'm going to give this episode of Star Trek Picard a 5 out of 10. And it's a generous 5. It was pretty boring. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review of Star Trek Picard's Season 1, Episode 4, absolute candor. Well, I hope you enjoyed it more than I did watching the episode. If you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe and share. Like, do people share anymore? I don't know. Anyway, catches.